The very best players from South Korea are facing off against each other in a best-of-5 series. What I've got for you today is a Terran versus Zerg that was played at the StarCraft 2 World Championships just a couple of days ago. Now, game number 1. We find ourselves on beautiful Golden Aura. Spotting right here in the top left-hand corner, playing with the blue Terran SCVs, we're looking at none other than Maru's main command center. His opponent in the opposite corner, in the far bottom right, with the red Zerg pieces, he goes by the name of Dark. Alrighty. These two, they don't really play against each other all too often, but whenever they do, it's a very important match. Not too long ago, they played in the grand finals of the GSL Codes, and at the time, it was Dark with the dad buff who ended up coming out ahead. That being said though, Maru is considered to be the very best Terran player in the world, and well, honestly, at least when this series was played, Maru was considered to be the very best Terran player in the world. Can we still say that? After Clem's dominating performance? Can we? I don't know. That'll be a discussion you can have, I guess. Anyways, there's no denying that Maru is one of the very best Terran players of all time. That feels wrong. There's no denying. Let me phrase it like this. There's no denying that Maru is the highest ranked player from South Korea. There you go. Now I've covered all my tracks. Now nobody is gonna get upset at me. I'm just kidding. Everybody always gets upset at any of those claims. Alrighty, it's gonna be a Reaper first right here from our Terran player. Nothing all too surprising. Dark has decided to go for a spawning pool on the far right side of his main base. Now, since I'm a professional commentator, I always have my health bars on, but just to make sure that I don't accidentally have them disabled, let me just jump into the settings for just about half a second. Alrighty, so let's see. This is an important match, by the way, for the both of them. This was one of the, I think it was the upper bracket finals, meaning that the winner of this this particular series immediately jumps to the next stage of the tournament. So at the EWC, there was a triple elimination format, which is kind of complex. Basically, long story short, if you lose a series, you're not out of the tournament yet. If you then lose another series, you're still not out of the tournament yet. If you lose a third one, however, you do end up being eliminated. So it was really nice to, to get this replay pack. So right after the event concluded, the EWC, the Esports World Cup, immediately sent out the replay packs. I retweeted it too, by the way, in case you want to have an in-depth look at some of the games yourself as well. But as a StarCraft 2 caster, I gotta say, it's really exciting because there's about a gajillion replays included in that pack from players that I don't really get to cast all too often. And of course, Maru is one of them. Maru, by the way, one of the players who has never won a World Championships before. So there's a lot of people that would consider Maru to be the greatest player of all time. There's a lot of people out there that consider him to be the best of the best. Yet Maru has never won a World Cup, which is, yeah, one of those titles that is still missing from his resume. It's obviously difficult to win a cup like this and to become the world champion, but yeah, that's one of the main criticisms, I guess, that people have whenever they have that discussion. Like, yeah, maybe Maru can't be considered to be the best of the best because he has never won a World Cup before. Do you need to win a premier tournament like this to be eligible for that title? Zerglings running in, trying to see if they can get some damage done, but nice defense here by Maru. Dark was hoping that those very first units already decided to go across the map. Very common, actually, to see the Terran players sending out their very first Hellions immediately. But that's not what Maru decided to do here. He's actually keeping 2 more at home. So one cool thing that we have seen in quite a few of Dark's games as of late, in the last couple of weeks, he's been making a lot of Zerglings a little bit earlier on than Zerg players normally do. And then he sends them in for the counterattack rather than defending at home against the Hellions. So he's basically forcing the Hellions to run all the way back to the Terran's main base because their Zerglings being obnoxious. So it's a classic example of the best defense being the offense. But apparently Maru has been studying those games, keeping a lot of units at home, making sure that Zergling run-bys are not a good option. And look at that. You had 4 on the ramp, decides to only send out 2 additional ones. Really playing this very safely. He clearly has been studying his opponent. And that is one of the things that is quite difficult here for Dark, right? So Dark... What? Never mind. I'll talk about that at a later time. Dark decides to go straight Nidus network. Mass Nidus network? Or Mass Zergling rather, and Queens, and then... Okay. This is not a very common strategy at all. Now, there is a lot of space over here in the main base. Dark has got a little nuke over here that I think he's got his eyes set on. Yeah, Maru does have a dark spot in the main base, but the problem here, of course, for Dark is that he doesn't know. Oh my god, what? He found the one spot in the main base of Maru that is extremely exposed. Very easy, by the way, for Maru to defend this if he knows that it's coming. But here we go. Brenda, Margaret, Karen, Lily. Where's Susan? Okay, she'll probably be out soon. Yeah, there, okay. She's joining in as well. There are a lot of Zerglings getting roasted in the meantime at the front. Dark trying to go for some double-pronged aggression. We did go for the Banshee cloaking, so that will make the game a little bit more manageable here for Maru, but you blink twice and suddenly there's a Zerg infestation. Queens have already managed to kill one of the barracks. Not really that big of a deal. Dark, of course, did go for a lair, now decides to go for an Overseer too, using that Overlord that was previously providing him vision. That Overlord got promoted. In the meantime, though, the Banshees are taking a lot of damage. Nice control right here by Maru, though. This is a difficult game. Gonna be sending the Marines and the SCVs into the main once more. And I think this has been a pretty stellar hold. I mean, I say that. Dark is not done. Maru is sending in his SCVs once again, trying to make sure that he can continue mining. But this aggression is not over. Dark is continuously making links, and he's now even making a spine crawler inside of the main base of Maru. Most Zerg players would indeed go back to droning at some point, but maybe not Dark. This is such a Dark game already. I love watching Dark, man. It's so much fun. It's one of those things that just really doesn't make a lot of sense on paper, but he must have looked at some of the games. I was gonna bring up that there aren't really any Maru games available for him to go ahead and study, but he must have known that there was a dark spot in the defense. I wouldn't be surprised if Maru just positions his units in the exact same way, and his structures and everything, in the exact same way in this particular game as he always does. And even though Maru doesn't compete in a lot, I guess that Dark knew something. And he immediately uses that to his advantage. Now 28 SCVs have gone down. It's a lot, yes, but this is still very recoverable. These Queens, by the way, 8 kills, 3 kills, 1 kill, 4, 5. Normally we don't see Queens getting this many kills. Second spine crawler right now is done, by the way. The mules are amazing, right? These mules are gonna really boost the income of the Terran player a lot. So despite all those losses, it's actually still manageable. Now he's continuously pushing the creep forward. The Queens are trying to make some progress here too. A Roach Warren, by the way, is coming up, and I really do think that's a clever choice. One of the problems here for Dark is that obviously he's got the Queens on the other side of the map. He doesn't have a ton of larva generation at home. Zergling production requires a lot of larvae. You can see that reflected right now in the resource counts. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Dark decides to make a lot of roaches here, maybe even morph in some Ravagers to continue this aggression. Oh, the command center died. Alright, to continue this aggression until ultimately Maru taps out. Yep, well, he doesn't even need any roaches. GG. Well then, just like that, we find ourselves on Crimson Court. Very interesting build there from Dark. Generally speaking, Dark plays offline events a little bit differently than he does online. Usually he doesn't play that aggressively in the offline cups, I've noticed, but apparently this time around Dark saw an opportunity and he immediately jumped on it. Now Crimson Court, it's a map that generally speaking Zerg players don't really love playing against Terran. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dark once more has got something prepared for this particular game as well. I'm a little surprised though, he was that late on the Roach Warren, right? So he probably assumed that the opponent would GG out a little bit earlier. He could have made that Roach Warren a bit quicker. I think it would have been, it would have played out quite a bit better overall if he would have been able to spend his money a bit easier. But anyways, he didn't really need it. Crimson Court it is going to be right now, so let's see what Maru can say. Obviously, there's a dark spot as well in the main base over here. So usually, and this is one of the downsides, I guess, for Terran, even though you can build all over the map, because of the add-ons, Terrans tend to, cluster their structures together a lot. So there's likely going to be a reactor right over here after the Reaper on this barracks. The factory is going to be produced right over there. We're going to see the switcheroo. Barracks wants to make a tech lab, usually on the back of it. Starport gets planted down right about over here. So you try to make sure that you cluster all of your add-ons relatively close together. And even though as a Terran you have the advantage of being able to build anywhere out on the map, there's usually still spots in the main base that are a little bit difficult to see. For example, supply depots could easily go in the corners, but usually supply depots are used as part of the wall off at the front. So, a pretty silly blunder there from Maru, but obviously a very clever play from Dark. Even though there aren't really that many games of Maru floating around, at least not compared to the amount of replays of Dark that are floating around on the internet, there's still apparently enough information. Now, what in the world is this here from Dark? Dark opening up gasless. A gasless opener for Zerg is very risky. But I don't think Maru is going to be able to find out about this until a little bit later. He is probably assuming that this is the gas geyser taken by the Zerg. He's going to get confirmation of it. Okay, now he sees that there's no gas in the main base. And that's going to give him all the info he really is looking for. He hasn't seen the third over here. He knows that the third is not over there. So it has to be sneaked away or tucked away over here on the left side of the map on Crimson Court. So there's this golden mineral wall. Obviously it's mirrored as well on the other side of the map. Dark decided to mine it out quickly. And he's still gasless, by the way. Now we finally go into an extractor. Now, I know that this has been set for a very long time, but this has once again been rumored at the EWC that this is actually Dark's final tournament that he can play before his military service. I have already mentioned this about a gajillion times over the last year or so, but Dark was rumored to start his military service in February of 2023. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe one day he will begin his military service in Korea. I'm hoping for him that he can still, continue playing StarCraft 2, because I love watching Dark games. There's nobody really that plays like this. But it is curious to see that after, about a year and a half, Dark is still playing in pretty much everything. Maybe this is really the final one? I mean, he's been saying it, but he's been saying it as well for about a year and a half now. Since then, Dark, of course, became a dad. I don't really know exactly if that means that he gets like... So I think the main issue for the Korean pro gamers is that even if you have like a military job that allows you quite a bit of time away from the actual military, right? Even when you get to spend a lot of time at home with your family, you're still not allowed to earn money. I think that's basically the cutoff. Anyways, we have a Hellion drop coming in right here for Maru, who's catching the Zerg player off guard. I really like this play from the Terran. Evo Chamber block does not quite go down on the left side. I think it's a very clever build. This is a reaction to him knowing that the opponent did not go for Zergling speed. He saw the gasless opener and immediately decided to go for a Hellion drop. There's roaches available at the front, but there were none in the main base. 15 drones going down at the cost of a medevac and 4 Hellions. That is certainly not a bad situation right there for Terran whatsoever. Now a Banshee is going to try and rub some salt in the wound as well. Second Banshee is going to come on the back of this. Obviously these Banshees are relatively delayed. I think he's doing it, to prevent the roach counterattack. He went for a medevac first, and then into 2 Banshees. Normally you rush out the Banshees, but I think the medevac made a ton of sense in this game, and then the Banshee, obviously very useful to prevent that counterattack. So what is Dark doing on the back of this? Well, he's playing hyper greedy. He's droning up, he's going for the tech, he's getting additional gases, he's getting a 4th. He's doing all of this off of just 5 roaches. Very nice to see. It's a little dangerous though. It becomes a bit of a guessing game right now for Dark as to when Terran is gonna go for their next attack, because he doesn't really have an opportunity to scout. This is where Dark is going to have to do a little bit of gambling, and we'll have to see if it pays off, because he is basically just deciding, look, if you're going to attack my 4th base, I don't really have anything to stop you from killing it, but I also know that you know that I could be stopping it pretty easily, so you're unlikely to actually go for an attack. So this greed is... yeah, it's dangerous, but I think it actually does make a lot of sense. Look at this. Now suddenly, after all that worker damage that Maru did about a minute ago, Dark's all the way back up to 70 workers. He's gonna go into Link speed, Roach speed, +1/+1 in the Evos, and now he finally starts up Roaches. Okay. Yeah, now he sees what's going on. I think Maru realizes that maybe there was a little bit more he could do. Dark is gonna continue to greed though. Considering the losses, it's a straight infestation pit. In the meantime though, we do have a bunch of Marines arriving on the other side of the map. I really like that Dark decided to knock down these rocks early. It makes it much easier for his units to go in between the 3rd and the 4th. Obviously, Roaches though are quite slow, right? So you need to position them in a critical spot in order for them to actually clean up these attacks. Queens also have to be running around, and all of this Zerg army just feels like it takes ages to get anywhere. There's again a Nidus Worm. No way, dude. No way. Yeah, you don't see this from Serral. You don't see this from Raynor, or Shin, or Solar, or any of the other top-level Zergs. Dark just goes straight Nidus Network once again. Imagine if Dark cleaned up his macro just a little bit. I genuinely think Dark could be the very best player in StarCraft 2. But he makes mistakes that you... We're going Swarm Hosts? No! What? Oh, that's... Swarm Host against Bio Terran? Okay, well, the last time I... So this tournament is for $1 million, right? The prize pool is $1 million. You don't mess around in events like this. Generally speaking, Swarm Hosts are absolutely atrocious against... This is insane. Against Bio. Because Marines just gun down the Locust before they even land. I actually think Maru right now is afraid of like a Roach run by or something like that. He's gonna see the Locust for the very first time right now. This first wave needs to deal damage. A significant amount too. Already, I mean, this is good. Roach is running in. He gets some good biles as well. Siege tanks pop. 19 SCVs. So the Swarm Hosts are incredibly momentum based. I don't think Maru expected a Locust wave to suddenly show up, because that is not a build that is normally played against Terran. If he had the idea that this could be coming, he would have positioned his units differently. I think he was afraid that there was a Nidus Worm right over here and like a Queen March together with Roach Ravager. But that's not what happened here, and because of that, he did not run the SCVs, he did not have the Marines over here, he was not prepared against those Locusts at all. And again, a strategy that on paper is absolutely terrible, once more, is something that Dark makes work. So, let's see, how do we transition out of this? Well, it's gonna be a Hive. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Lurker Den here momentarily. This is still not that terrible, though, for Maru. Even though there were a lot of losses, this is a Zerg army that scales really poorly. Yeah, Maru is maxed out right now, and there's no doubt in my mind, well, he's almost maxed out, that he can win the fight straight up. Yep, big stim. So his plan is just to stim in. Stim to win, you know? The classic strategy. Chase down this Zerg army. There are Banelings. Banelings and Roly-Polies are, yeah, they're gonna be available. The Centrifugal Hooks. I think Maru is still gonna overwhelm this army, if I'm being honest with you. Well, here come the Locusts once more. They're gonna target the Siege tanks, I think. Probably just a few. Yep. And now the Lynx, Roaches, and Ravagers are gonna be pushing in through the front. Usually the only way you can ever really make Swarm Hosts work is if you transition towards Lurkers. But apparently Dark has decided to go quick Banelings instead, and maybe that is the right play. If he decided to go Lurkers in this case, I think he probably would have been too late, because the Lurkers wouldn't have been out yet for that big bio attack, and the Banelings did scare the Terran player off. Now he's going Adrenal Glands together with +1 melee. How frequently do you see Adrenal and +1? That makes no sense, but it is a dark play and a half. Swarmos have once more arrived on the other side of the map. They're gonna send another Locust Wave towards the natural expansion. Maru finally finding an opportunity here. I feel like this is the first time he gets something done. There we go. Okay. This is the first time he really gets something done since that Hellion drop at like minute 4. This is one of those builds that you just don't practice against, right? It's so tricky to predict this sort of style. Okay. As the dust settles, I still like this position better for Maru. I really like that he decided to continue researching immediately. One of the big problems here for Terran is that he's only got triple command center, right? So this is not really that rich of a Terran. But if he decides to go for an all-out attack, within about a minute or so from now, I think he can probably win the game. The longer he waits though, the more difficult it'll be. Obviously, we can look at the entire match pretty easily. Okay, he decides to go command center right now. We can look at the game and realize the amount of resources that the players have and all that, but Maru doesn't have all the intel. But he must realize that Zerg has mostly been on 3 bases of their own as well, and he's on 3 bases, so that generally does make a bit of a difference. No reaction against the Banelings? Okay, that's a bunch of STVs going down. In the meantime, though, there's also a drop that has unloaded on the other side of the map. This base is once more gonna get the Knight. Nice micro here by Maru. You can see these upgrades really kicking in. The Ravagers are so expensive compared to the Marines. Yeah, men with gun, pretty good. Ay, ay, ay. This Terran army is about maybe 20% the cost of the Zerg army there. And Maru still ended up trading very effectively. He's gone for a lot of Marauders now too, which I think is actually quite nice. They tank a lot of damage, especially against the Banelings, and obviously they're very handy as well against the Roaches. Okay. Here's another Locust Wave coming in. I think ultimately Maru can get this done. But it is one of those games that does make you scratch your head a little bit. This is still looking quite close. I mean, the longer those Swarmos are around for, the more efficient life is going to get for Dark. But I think these losses, yeah, they're just a little bit too big. Fun game. GG. We're getting all the spicy maps out of the way right at the very start of this series. Game number 3, we find ourselves on good old Dynasty. One of the absolute best maps for Terran ever. I think it's fair to say one of the, at least in recent memory. Let's see what Maru decides to do. So this is of course a map where this is actually, wait, hold up. I'm gonna pause this for just a second. Game number 1 was on Golden Aura. Game number 3 is on Dynasty. That means Dark picked Crimson Court. Anyways, that is a dark moment and a half right there. He didn't veto Dynasty and he did, okay. Anyways, this is a map where you can harass your, Dark is taking it on the other side. Oh, he's inviting something. Maru, though, is calling the bluff by building a barracks on the other side of the map, too. Generally speaking, you take this base on that side, if you are the Zerg player. Generally speaking, as Terran, you take it over here as well, right? In the safer location. There's definitely a lot of mind games that get played when it comes to map vetoes. So there are maps that are just simply better for one race. That's just the nature of, you know, the game. Like, if you change the maps, obviously, sometimes they favor one playstyle over the other. And right now, most of the maps are quite good for Terran. In a best of 5 series, both players get to veto 2 maps each. I feel like this would be an insta veto, and I wouldn't be surprised if Crimson Court would be the second veto for Zerg. But apparently Dark instead decided to just pick it, which is kind of nuts. Maru, by the way, I love this. Yeah, he decides to go for a bunker rush. A good old bunker rush. The drones are gonna arrive. Dark still does not have the vision, right? So he gets the vision now. When the structure finishes, He is gonna see what is cooking up right outside of his range. He should go for a spine crawler. He tried making a spine crawler, but it did get cancelled because the other drones were being a little bit annoying. If the spine crawler finishes, he can probably hold on to this, but this is already looking really, really good here for Maru. Second Reaper is coming. Dark's basically just trying to buy time. He's hoping that the golden minerals can give him the advantage that he ultimately needs. In the meantime, by the way, Maru is also going for a gold base himself. SCV is low. Queen spawns and gets the kill. Okay. This is very recoverable, actually, now for Dark. So he did lose 2 drones and 2 Zerglings, but that's not the end of the world. Now, suddenly, though, we're gonna have one of the Reapers on the other side, usually the quote-unquote safe side, harassing this as well. The Reaper's going back and forth. Roach Warren is coming up. Dark decides to go for the rich Vespian gas geyser over here, and he instantly dropped down a Roach Warren with it. Couple Zerglings on the other side of the map just trying to cause havoc and just be annoying. This is ultimately a Roach Rush. We are minutes away from a potential Banshee. I actually think that Maru probably needs to go for Cyclones. Okay, I feel like Cyclones are the only thing that makes sense here. Great read by Maru. If he decided to autopilot, I think he could be in a lot of trouble. I think Cyclones make so much more sense. They're an actual unit that can counter roaches. Good read right there by Maru, who realizes the rich Vespian gas geyser, rather, and he realizes that this is potentially very, very dangerous. The barracks has come back home. We're gonna go for a reactor on that one, so he really wants to go mass cyclone, I think. Keep in mind that roaches can obviously also harass this golden mineral line from the back. Dark has now shown off one of his roaches here. There is one going to the bottom of the map. He has seen that his opponent is not set up on the low ground at all. So that must mean that Terran expanded on the gold base. Ravagers are gonna start raining their biles. It takes 7 corrosive biles to kill a bunker. We're ages away from that. But Dark is gonna continue adding on more and more of those expensive units, and the more Ravagers he gets, the better this will ultimately be. There is no Zergling speed, so no Link Flood on the back of this. I think this will just basically be pure Roach. And it's viable because of this rich gas geyser. So that gas geyser gives you twice as much income. 8 gas a trip compared to the conventional 4. It's much better than the mineral improvement that you get from the golden minerals. Main problem here, is the Banshee. So Maru is gonna be, he's gonna be able to find an easy answer against all of this. He realizes that this is a ticking time bomb. If he waits too long, the Ravager count will get too big. Now the Banshee, though, is available. 3 SCVs, I think some of those could have been prevented. I mean, there's still one Ravager over here, too, getting a bunch of kills. I think he just actually rained a bile and got some additional snipes. 8 workers is actually kind of a lot, but Roach is trying to go, or Ravagers rather, trying to go for the lucky biles. In the meantime, Dark has been droning up his gold base. My god, this is one of the most entertaining games of Zerg I've ever seen. Dark is so slippery. I don't think there's anybody out there that can say, yo, I feel confident playing against Dark. I don't think there's anybody out there. Like, there are a few players that I think are favored against Dark, but none of them want to play Dark. This man seems incredibly annoying to go up against. Constant guessing as to what he's going to be doing next. Props to Maru, though. Not just going for the standard openers. Not just trying to play predictable, right? And play predictable StarCraft 2. He's actually trying to fight fire with fire. I think it's the best approach against Dark's playstyle, but you need to be confident that you can actually pull that sort of thing off. Now Dark, by the way, double expanding. Because of course, that's what you do. Gold base first, into a Ravager rush to the other side of the map, into double expand while droning. Ultimately, if you look at the worker counts right now, this is actually not a bad game for Dark at all. Man, I love Dynasty. I mean, I love casting games on Dynasty. Clarification, I love casting games on this map. I don't think it's very good to play, because it's so difficult, but the Dynasty games are always very, very entertaining, because the Zerg players and Well, it depends on the matchup, right? But generally speaking, it's the Zerg players that just have to make plays and they have to get something done. And this gold base just really provides a lot of entertainment. Really fun to see. Alrighty, +1/+1 coming up for the Zerg. We have the Roach Warren, Glial Reconstitution. I would not be surprised if we're gonna see another Nidus Worm, although it would be a little bit rough. Main problem is that this map has a lot of choke points. And generally speaking, choke points are really good for siege tanks. Right, so Roach Ravager, it's already quite susceptible to siege tanks. I can imagine that it's gonna be... Yeah, if it's just pure Roach Ravager, the Terran is gonna tear it apart. Infestation Pit coming up. Hydra then coming up. Okay, so I'm assuming this is gonna be Hydras into Lurkers into Hive. The idea being that, yes, Terran siege tanks are amazing in choke points, but Lurkers, likewise also a siege unit, very, very good in similar situations. It's just that normally in most games on this map, Zerg players don't have the time to get Lurkers going, but Dark may have just made the most complex game. Like, he made it possible in one of the most complex ways possible, but it's cool to see. So, instant Hive, I would imagine. Yup. And then a Lurker den. It could also be for Vipers. I feel like this has to be a Lurker den though, because he got the extra gases going immediately over here. This is, by the way, a Hive, as we also have combat shields about halfway done. A lot of this doesn't really make sense. You know what? This could be for Vipers. He could just go into like 2/2 and Vipers instead. Alright, well, he is on a timer. Maru is going across the map. And those siege tanks are real dangerous. Hydras don't have their speed upgrade yet. They got their range, but not the speed. So it makes it difficult for Dark to really close the distance to this Terran army. He's gonna give it a shot though. Maru inviting him into a bit of a concave. I don't think this is a horrible position for Dark. He just doesn't really have the numbers here. He's got a lot of money in the bank too. 9 larvae yet still available. Needs to make a few overlords. One cheeky little roach trying to distract this Terran army. He never fired up 2/2. He never got Vipers. So he's just trying to hold on. I feel like you need one of the two, to be honest. He's got to try and collapse on top of this Terran army. Dark is going to surround all of these units, and it looks like he does ultimately have enough reinforcements to get this done. Now the Viper starts up. Huh. Maru, by the way, really put a lot of effort into that attack. Armory is very delayed. He hoped that he could win the game with that attack. Delaying his +2/+2 upgrades. You need an armory in order to go into +2/+2. And Maru assumed that he would probably be able to crush that Zerg army. And he did initially. But then he decided to take a fight that wasn't quite ideal. Couple roaches again at the bottom of the map. I feel bad for Maru here, man. There's a lot of things that are like, you know, this is not supposed to happen. Like, this is not how the game is supposed to be played. Didn't Dark read the rule book? Like, you're not like, this is not... Alright. Another barracks coming up. Now we go Lurker Den. Yeah, so ultimately he will arrive at Hydra Lurker Viper, which is gonna be really good. It's just... he just got there in the weirdest way possible. Okay. So, current situation here for Maru. Well, main problem is that he is gonna have a tricky time expanding from here. He's still on just the basis that he's been on this entire time. He needs to make a move for the 4th base soon. There we go. We're gonna be flying that one over to the middle of the map. Mineral line in the main base is already running low. The golden base obviously also runs out pretty quick. I actually think the longer that this goes, the easier it's gonna get for Dark. Lurkers are gonna hit like a truck. He's gonna try and see if he can fight this right here, right now. Blinding Cloud on one of those siege tanks. Much of the Marines also have a hard time engaging into this. Dark is denying this expansion to the best of his abilities, but he currently has no gas. He's got a lot of resources in the bank, but no easy way to spend it. A Parabomb would be nice. Okay, now I think his plan is basically to soft contain the Terran on 3 bases. Abduction goes down, and Maru straight up taps out. Alrighty. Alcyone is next. Match point here for Dark. I'm very surprised that we had Crimson Court and then Dynasty in that order. Can I look at the win-loss ratio real quick for Crimson Court? Crimson Court LE. Crimson Court has a 70% win rate for Terran versus Zerg. Golden Aura, which was game number 1 of this series. Can I look that one up real quick as well? Golden Aura Liquipedia. Golden Aura has a win rate for Terran of 45%. So it was definitely Dark that picked Golden Aura. And then, wait, what? So Dark picks Golden Aura, Maru picks Crimson Court, and then Dark picks Dynasty? Dark picked Dynasty? Okay, I would have to look into the map vetoes, because this is wild, but it's Dark in a nutshell. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. Again, I tend to treat this game like it's just a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper. And Dark treats it like a real-time strategy game. Yeah. This is, by the way, a triple Rex opener here from Maru. There's a lot of mind games going on for sure, outside of the game too. So what you gotta keep in mind is that these two recently played a Premier Tournament Grand Finals, right? Same map pool, same balance patch, everything's the same. At the time it was Dark who ended up winning, and you can certainly imagine that that stinks for Maru. He does not want to have a repeat of that specific situation. So it's not just the matchup that the players play, it's not just the opponent that the players play, but also the history that they play into, right? And I can imagine that these two have had some conversations outside of the game too. Dark may have very well been talking his way into a series that's... I wouldn't be surprised if Dark's playing mind games outside of the game too. 100%. What's really fun though is that if he picked Dynasty, right? Maru decided to call the bluff with the gold base by proxying a barracks on the other side of the map and then going into a bunker rush. He called the bluff, but Dark still had multiple responses prepared. Kind of crazy, actually. Anyway, this is a triple Reaper rush right now for Maru. He is going to make a lot of Reapers. This is, luckily for Dark, not a game where he skipped the gas early on, because you ultimately need Zergling speed against this attack. It's going to be a ton of Reaper production. Nice thing, of course, for Maru is that the Reapers are 50 minerals, 50 gas each. So ultimately, you naturally end up with a lot of minerals that you can use to make a command center. But you do need to get something done with these Reapers. Okay. Yeah, I wonder how much of a plan is Dark has going into a series like this. I know a lot of the pro gamers, when they get to prepare, so he's making a lot of links. He's gonna go across the map. I know a lot of pro gamers have a plan for every single map that they might have to play in a series. So say, for example, you're going up against Clem, he will likely have a build order prepared for every single map that you're about to play. I don't think Dark does that. I think he's mostly winging it. At least that's the vibe I'm getting, but I might be entirely off. Nice control right here by Maru, using those grenades to make it difficult for the Lynx to get the wrap around. Ultimately, though, this Reaper opener has not achieved too much. These add-ons are extremely exposed. One of the downsides of this particular spawn location, and Dark sniping them is massive. This slows down the Terran so much. Cancels an instant rebuild, but I mean, that's gonna cut into the Marine production a ton. So Dark over-making Zerglings here, knowing very well that those add-ons were going to be exposed, knowing very well he could probably push away the Reapers, and he finds himself now in a comfortable game. Momentum has shifted heavily in favor of the Zerg, because any follow-up attack leans into, well, obviously Stimpak, but also just Marines. You need a bunch of Marines in order to attack, and now this is probably going to be at least 4 Marines less, with whatever attack Maru is going to follow this up with. 4 Marines less probably means you can get away with like 10 less Zerglings. Means that you can make 5 extra drones. It doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but the math is mathing. It adds up very quickly over the course of a game. So how does Maru wiggle his way out of this? I'm assuming, so he's actually not gone for a quick third command center. He's really committed to go for an attack. This may very well be him calling the bluff, because he knows that his opponent knows that there's not going to be as much Marine production. But he also knows that his opponent knows that it's likely that Maru would have gone for a quick third command center on the back of this. And since he knows that his opponent knows that that is the case... we must go deeper! We must add an extra layer! +1/+1 coming up right now. +1 is going to finish up. I think Maru is about ready for an attack. He's had control of the watchtower, so the Lynx can't easily go off creep. These little singular pathways here make it difficult for the Lynx to control the watchtower, and I think this is the first time that Dark realizes that there's an attack inbound. 22 Marines with +1 and Stimpak. They're good, but not all the Marines are over here, and I think there's enough Queens for the Zerg player. Yep. I think Dark will be able to push this away, assuming he floods the map with Zerglings. A lot of the Marines are also busy targeting the hatchery down. Okay, the Reapers are nice, though. Yeah, they're making it difficult for the Queens to get damage in. Maybe this is very doable, actually, for Maru. How many Queens have gone down? It's hard to say. We'll look at the resources lost in just a moment as the dust settles. Yeah, no, this is ultimately still good for Maru. 7 Queens. So, the key move here was Maru taking control of the watchtower. On basically every other map, the Zerglings would have been on the watchtower, but because of the layout here, with the Zerglings being forced to run in an essentially single file, Maru had control of the watchtower, and that allowed him to delay that first wave of Zerglings for quite a bit, because Dark didn't see this attack coming in. And that actually has now made this game a lot more playable for Maru. Assuming he can deal more damage. Because Maru has not made a third command center. Essentially every Terran build order in 2024 is a rush to triple CC. This is a 2 base all-in from Maru. This is like a game from 2010 played with 17 layers of mind games. Is there enough for Maru to overwhelm this? He got 8 worker kills, that's actually quite a lot, but he did lose the siege tanks. It's just that the Marines are putting in so much work, and Dark does not have the numbers to defend this just seconds before finishing up centrifugal hooks. If he would have made, I want to say literally 10 Zerglings, right? If he would have made 10 Zerglings when the Terran player first moved out with the Marine squad, I think he would have held that easily, and then this follow-up attack would have been a clean sweep. But Maru, yeah, tossed up a coin. And luckily for him, he got it to land how he wanted. Alrighty, final game in this best of 5 series. I am ready for a straight up macro game, okay? 45 minutes, the entire map mines out. No more tricks. Okay, actually, no, we can do some tricks as well, but less tricks and just straight up gaming. I say that in before Dark goes for like a, I don't know, a Baneling bust. Nobody Baneling busts, but if anybody's gonna Baneling bust, it would be Dark. Let's see. Looks like Maru is gonna go for a double Rex opener at the front. It's the only style that really makes sense. Dark is gonna go for a 16 supply hatchery on the low ground. And I'm assuming we're gonna see a 18 gas, and then a 17 spawning pool. So the next larva should turn into a pool. Look at that. Dun dun dun. Bam bam bam. Isn't it beautiful? during the EW Central stream, the broadcast we did for the Esports World Cup for StarCraft 2, I several times used the word beautiful to describe StarCraft 2. Have I mentioned that already? I don't know if I've already talked about this, but I thought it was kind of interesting because I talked about the game being beautiful, and I actually totally think it is. There are some really nice strategies and some really elegant gameplay in StarCraft 2, but I noticed the other commentators for the other games, they don't really use the word beautiful to describe Call of Duty gameplay moves, you know? Like, they don't really use those sort of terms, but there is a certain elegance to playing StarCraft 2. I think it's kind of interesting. I've been thinking about that a lot over the last week. Apparently, they don't use the word beautiful very frequently when it comes to Call of Duty casting. I feel like in StarCraft, if you've seen enough games, there is certainly a beauty to the way that certain things are executed. Or maybe I've just casted too many games. Maybe I've seen too many games of SC2 at this point. I start hallucinating. Everything becomes very pretty. All right, anyways, third base is gonna go down. Yeah, there's something about StarCraft, man. Oh, it's such a beautiful game. What's funny too, right, is I've been trying out a lot of different RTS games over the last few months. And some of them are good, don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying playing the majority of them. But there is just something about StarCraft that just makes it so nice. The readability of StarCraft 2 is also just really good. Right? It's colorful, but not too colorful. The unit outlines are clear enough. The unit pathing is excellent. Except for the Ultralisk, but the Ultralisk is like a special case. It all just plays really well. It's actually quite interesting, as we do have the Reapers now. It's, by the way, a triple Rex opener again for Maru, not a double Rex. He's gonna get the kill on that base for sure. But Dark should be able to defend against the follow-up with Link Speed here. Anyways, it is interesting to me how StarCraft 2, considering it's a game from 2010, right? It's now 14 years old. Graphically, it's held up really, really nicely. If you look at other games that came out that year, it is obvious that they've aged. Now, obviously, StarCraft 2 has had a couple of graphical improvements as well since the release. But at its core, it's still a game from 2010, and I don't think anybody's gonna say the game looks ugly, right? Maybe you do. I don't know. I feel like they've always done that really well at Blizzard. We do have once again a quick Roach Warren here for Dark. Like World of Warcraft, classic WoW is not an ugly game. It's an art style that may have dated a little bit, but you know, it ages nicely. So what are we gonna use the Roach Warren for? Well, first off, we are slightly supply blocked. That makes it a bit awkward. He's gone triple gas. So we are actually just making a lot of units. Yeah, we are actually just doing a Roach Rush. So Dark forced to cancel the third base because of the Reaper attack. He decides to follow this up right now with what seems to be a Roach Ravager Rush. And again, the add-ons at the front are extremely exposed. Now, I like that Maru had a third barracks. This is the pivotal one, the one that's researching Stimpak. If Stimpak gets denied, it becomes a bit of a disaster. Okay, now at this point, Maru will know what he's playing against. Lovely snipe on one of those roaches. Okay. This is all slowing it down a ton. I'm a little worried here for Dark. I think this is a good setup for Maru, who's even gonna go for a bunker. I don't think he really needs a bunker. All he really needs is Stimpak, and it's gonna finish up. Yeah, he's just making sure he's safe, right? He doesn't really need to take any risks. Once more, this is a 2-base Terran. So 2-base Terran is really, like, he's gonna have a ton of unit production. The only problem is that in this particular instance, Terran cannot afford losing a lot of SCVs. And this is still kind of a rough setup. I don't like this here for Maru all too much. He hits a supply block right from the start. He's gonna lose a lot of his production right from the beginning as well. Stimpak is done though. There's a large group of Zerglings running across the map. Okay, well, here we go. Let the dance commence. Dark rains the biles. And he's inviting the Terran. He's like, bro, use Stimpack. Ah, he got him. We're gonna chase it? I don't think we want to chase it. Every Stimpack at this point in the game is costly. Maru's got a siege tank out though. Second siege tank on the production tab. One of the barracks goes down. The siege tank is gonna make life much better. Dark needs high ground vision if he wants to bile it down. So Maru's positioning right there is brilliant. Killing the Overlord is also a nice play that makes it practically impossible for Dark to get rid of that siege tank. Okay. He decides to now go into an Evo chamber together with a lair. And he's droning up the third base. The scan here for Maru reveals that indeed droning has commenced, and that means that Maru knows that he is going to be able to go for the counterattack, or at least continue macroing up at home. There's a large group of Zerglings still out on the map. I almost wonder if they can just run in. I think you can, Dark. Oh, he doesn't know though. He doesn't realize that the entire bio army has left. Okay. Can Maru get damage done? The Zerglings are running back home. Big opportunity for Dark, but he did not quite grab it. And it looks like Maru will be deflected here in the end. Okay, so as the dust settles, I think I prefer this position for Dark. Mostly because, and it's a bit funky again, but mostly because the third command center is so late. Normal timing of the third CC is minutes earlier than this. Obviously, this is not a very comfortable position right now to play as Maru. Even though he's going to have a lot of unit production. Normally, that's great if you know that you have a timing attack lined up. But with this particular setup, it's really quite difficult for Maru to unsiege all of his tanks and go for a big push on the other side of the map. I think it's more likely that Maru will just take the third command center on over here and then slowly move his siege tanks in a better position and try to turtle his way into a better economy. But if he decides to make that call, which seems to be what he's doing right now, Dark is going to have free reign of the entire map and he can do whatever he likes. Now, what does he like? Nidus Worm. This is the most unnecessary Nidus network that I've seen so far. I think this is a Nidus network that Dark is saying, yo, get out of my game, right? I think that's what he's saying with this. I really don't think you need to do this at all. This is a game where Maru is pretty far behind. I would probably call this like a 4-1 advantage for Dark or something along those lines. Going for the Nidus Worm makes it so much more risky than it needs to be. I think if you play this out normally, you find yourself very far ahead. But Dark, clearly not somebody who wants to be playing the late game. Alright, put down the worm. He now notices, by the way, Maru that is, that there's no expansion at the bottom of the map. And he will see the Nidus Worm inside of the main base. The Zerglings! Oh my lord, oh god, okay. 2 siege tanks immediately get killed. That's a massive problem. Has he reacted yet to the Nidus network? He has. So that one will get denied. In the meantime, the Marines have, well, started working on some of the drones, but already 14 SCVs go down. Honestly, I think the biggest exchange there was those 2 Zerglings. The 2 siege tanks, rather, that got killed by the Zerglings. They should have been behind the wall. They were slightly mispositioned. Dark sees an opportunity and he immediately goes for it. Now follows it up with the freaking burrow upgrade. Ay. I don't know what the exact price pool increase is for this series, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is for like a guaranteed additional like $50,000. Something along those lines, you know? I don't really know exactly what the different, like it's 400k for first place, right? But I don't really know exactly what the guarantees are. I think it goes from 15,000 guaranteed to like 70 or 80. So for Dark to, it's nuts to me to see him going for so many coin flips. So like, it's not Maru that wants to play this. I guess Maru almost invited this by going into the triple racks. 2 games in a row, but my god. Dark doesn't care. Obviously, both of these players are already well at like, I think like 1.5 maybe 3, 4, 5 million or so in their total earnings throughout their careers for just tournament prize pools, right? So it's not like they're strapped for... They'll be doing all right financially. That does not take into consideration any sponsorships and team salaries and all the rest of it. But my god, to essentially let like that much money come down... Oh, he noticed it! To a freaking roach burrow. Like, that's so risky. Lovely play right there from Maru. So let me show you what that looks like from Maru's perspective. Maru doesn't have vision, but this map is very dark, right? So or very light rather, so he can see the dark roaches. Yep, just like that. There's a little shadow, and even though these guys are playing at very high actions per minute, and they will not be on the same screen for a long time, Maru saw it coming in. Nicely done. That could have been a disaster, by the way, right? If you have suddenly like 7 roaches on a siege tank, a couple in a mineral line, I mean... You have to start putting out a lot of different fires. Okay, apparently we killed that creep tumor first. Interesting decision. Nice moves here, though, by the Terran player. Making all the right calls. Sorry about that, Jimmy. Here's a couple of roaches, though. Still being obnoxious. Justifying this upgrade is tricky. But, I mean, scans are not free. Any scan is the same amount of energy as a mule. So, it does indirectly have a value. Maru stims forward, gets the kill on the 4th base. Lovely, lovely work. 4th command center about halfway done right now for the Terran. 2nd factory right now at the front. Oh, he's using the siege tanks to kill themselves. He knew he was spotted, but the 2nd shell did not quite go off. The friendly fire not going in his favor that time around. More Niduses in the main base. Dark is an absolute monster, man. Was that a command center? No, it was a barracks. Okay. Must have been a barracks. I was gonna say, that would be insane if it was a CC. That timing on the command center would make no sense either, but the square seemed quite big. Yeah, so every scan, I think that's how Dark is justifying this. Every scan could have been a mule, and a mule obviously mines a substantial amount of resources in its life. So I think Dark is saying, yo, if I lose a couple roaches here and there, it doesn't really matter if you're gonna use a scan for it every single time. In the meantime, +3/+3 is coming up. Vipers are done. Every time that I have played Tunnel Clawed Roaches, and I tried to do something like this, I always find myself stuck at Lair Tech. But in the meantime, Dark has gone all the way up to Hive. Goes Lurker then, and he's making a big transition towards Hydras. This is an attack that's gonna hit like a truck. Well, I say that, Maru has a lot of supply caught up in his units too. He's nearly maxed out. Nicely done right there by the Terran player. Okay. Big Marine counterattack. This is a good push right here from Terran once again. He came in all the way from the edge of the creep and just ran forward. Don't lose your Medivacs though. Okay. Good. Ghost Academy coming up. Siege tank abductions? Oh no, Viking abductions first. Vikings, Medivacs, Liberator, nothing safe. Dark's gonna be forced to go back. This is, by the way, very much so unlike the Maru that we normally see. The Maru that I've seen for the majority of the year in this particular matchup is a Turtle Terran. He loves sitting back and he likes making command centers and then more command centers and then more command centers. I think that's ultimately what Maru is trying to do, but Dark is making it very difficult for him to play that style. Seismic Spines coming up. Ghosts, though, are already on the production tab too, and he gets another kill. A repeat kill on the 4th base. Nicely done here by the Terran once more. Oh, this is dangerous. Parabombs are huge, man. Or abductions? Yeah, these units are stuck. Why did we... that was like 30 supply down the drain. Maru, like, that was a little sloppy, if I'm being honest. Like, that was not ideal. He knew that there were Hydras. He knew that there were Vipers. There was no reason to turn those Medivacs around and try to get lucky. One of the easiest cleanups that Dark needed to do this game. It does open up more supply, I guess, though, for Maru to add on additional ghosts. He currently has 4 of them. The lurker count is growing. Here's more abductions coming up, though, with those Vipers. The choke point is in favor of the Terran. Dark will be forced to once more get out of here. Okay. Nematized Carapace on the production tab. That is the Overlord speed improvement. We'll have to see what the plan is as far as that goes. It's not like Dark is a particularly rich man. I think he's just using it to make the Nidus Worm positioning a little bit better, but I love that siege tank there. Maru's got his natural expansion covered. There's still more aggression over here, though. Gets the kill in the command center. Now, these marine counterattacks are lovely. Great stuff right here. By Maru. It's ultimately what's keeping him in this game. I feel like strategically, Dark has been a few steps ahead of Maru. But Maru just, every once in a while, shows up with one of those attacks and he suddenly appears. And speaking of suddenly appearing, we have a bunch of lurkers in the main base. The Zerg infestation has begun. There are some snipes. Another Nidus Worm makes it difficult for Dark to, or makes it difficult for Maru rather, to really get rid of these units. And now suddenly, with the Terran army going into the main base, I think that was a little bit of all army hotkeying there from Maru. The floodgates have been opened at the front. No liftoff on that orbital command, and that is a CC going down. SCVs are still dying. The lurkers have not been dealt with. There's more Zerg units waiting on the left side of the map too. They notice that the Zerg army, or the Terran army rather, is moving to the right. They will be moving in towards the left, and the lurkers are still destroying everything. Maru is forced to evacuate the main base. He's remaking his production structures up north. 2 factories together with a barracks. "11 lurkers. In addition to the ones that were already out there. We have 21 lurkers. I think we're gonna see the Zerg player make an attempt at winning this series very soon. I think he's gonna try and, yeah, put the nail in the coffin. If he can burrow his lurkers right about over here, that planetary fortress will be dead very rapidly. He's still creating a lot of distractions for the Terran, though. Okay, we have the lurkers instead a little bit closer out on the map. Yeah, Maru can't keep up. Maru cannot keep up with what Dark is doing in this game at all. And I feel like that's been mostly the story for this entire series. A very slippery Zerg. GG. It's Dark who wins this particular match 3-2. That was absolutely amazing, though. Such a fun set of games.